bring back a percentage of our historical points created by our earlier voting pattern. I've had 2 responses already. Both say don't do it. The current system is working very well.
Current system is working very well, Suresh.
Yes,
Even though I don't
just
vote,
not
I'm one
touch
of
it.
those who doesn't vote, abstains.
Because looking back, I realize now the whole question was whether by giving priority only to the current voting, we are totally removing the vote books which have been popular for 6 months, 4 months, but never.
Yes, that was my question too.
But that has not happened. You look at this month, for example, the current voting. All the new references, the new entrants did not make the grade. It is only the old ones which really got the grade. Everybody, lot of the votes went to the old books only, which have been just below the winning point earlier. So I think leaving it at the current situation is the best. It is not impacting the old books because the people are not bothering about them anymore. That's what it boils down to. So I think we'll leave it as it is. This is the one thing.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. We leave it as it is.
Yeah.
Then I learned a new word.
Mind you, Suresh, giving that 40% if you want. I think that's a good idea too. So that the old books also get a say. People get, many of them may not be aware of what the earlier selections are.
No, that is why I am keeping track of the total list of books
Yeah,
and the
he's
total
constantly
votes.
putting it
And
up.
the pre-nominations include the top 10.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that takes care of that angle. So what Rameshan and Vijay say are acceptable because of that point. If you remove that also, then what you say is very right. Nobody knows what happened earlier. That's not the case now because we are keeping track of what happens earlier. As far as the pre-nomination goes, and that brings the books back to our memory. The top 10 books that we have been talking about earlier. And of course, the new ones are added. So we'll leave it as it is for the time being. Everybody say okay?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. Perfect.
Then I learned a new word today. Bildungsroman.
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 Yes.
Oh goodness.
It's a
Bildungsroman.
literary genre. It is a literary genre that focuses on the psychological and moral growth of the protagonist from childhood to adulthood, in which character change is important. This book slots into that exactly. Coming to the book, the basic story is a common garden romance, honestly, which starts in school, childhood, and develops further. But the way Sally pictures this is definitely unusually good. She's able to get under the skin of her characters and importantly, lets us experience them personally. I think the story is well crafted and we are able to visualize the situations and characters clearly. Quite a descriptive, smooth and free-flowing writing style. The unusual way she jumps the narrative by a few days, weeks, months for each chapter seems to work. But I can't say I like the book. But I like the craft used by the author in creating this story. Now coming to the content. I think the title should have been Abnormal People. I've been wondering throughout the time I was reading the book, what am I missing? Do people really live like this? Everything is so alien. And we are talking about the generation Z, which is our future. It's really scary. Or is it that I am totally out of touch with today's reality? This is something I put up a question to the group also earlier. I really need to understand what is happening around me. Maybe I am out of touch with reality. Some of us are grandchildren who fall in the Generation Z category. I, for one, do not see this sort of lifestyle across the board in them. Is it something a purely Western thing? Is it something purely imaginary? Or this is how the life is all over the place, in which case we really should worry about our future. I don't want to talk anything more about the book. Floor is open.
Sure. Prema, you said you had to leave early, right?
Yes,
Why don't
please.
you go next?
Yeah, I can. Well, I also like Suresh. I cannot really say that I enjoyed the book, but I found it extremely gripping and interesting. And if I had expected the story to lead somewhere, then I would have been again disappointed. And anyway, who are the normal people? I don't think that the protagonists are normal people. Maybe it means the people around them. As for the language, much is being made about the simplicity of the language. Well, it seemed to be just a normal style. I mean, nothing worth praising so much. And suddenly words like originally and performatively, they suddenly leap out and look at you and you wonder where these words came from. Because most of the other words are very simple words of one syllable kind of thing. Now that said, this is essentially a real love story, which delves deep into the on-off relationship between two very intense, unusual, and brilliant young persons, Marianne and Cornell. They come from widely different backgrounds. He from a working class home where a single mother loves him, and she from an affluent, dysfunctional family. They're both highly intelligent, but otherwise very different. He is socially adept, but within, he is a confused, nervous, hesitant human being. He's an introvert, a loner in school who initially, and here I quote from the book, had the sense that her real life was happening somewhere far away without her. Later, she undergoes a personality change, at least outwardly. Now, there are highs and lows in their relationship, with Connell dropping her, Marian, often for no apparent reason. But they truly love each other, and they can be their real selves only with each other. After 3 years of this going and froing, the story ends the same way, leaving the reader and Marian wondering. The book, at least to us, as Suresh said, maybe our generation, maybe we're Indians, a real eye-opener about student life in Irish universities. There are a huge number of get-togethers, imbibing freely and getting inebriated most of the time. Now, actually, to me, the last paragraph in the book sums up very beautifully the whole essence of the book. He is going off to the USA and he's still in his usual shall I not mode. And then he says, you know, I love you, says Cornell. I'm never going to feel the same way for someone else. He nods. Okay, he's telling the truth. To be honest, I don't know what to do, he says. You want me to stay, and I will. She closes her eyes. He probably won't come back, she thinks, or he will differently. They have now, they can never have back again. But for her, the pain of loneliness will be nothing to the pain that she used to feel of being unworthy. He brought her goodness like a gift, and now it belongs to her. Meanwhile, his life opens out before him in all directions at once. They have done a lot of good for each other. Really, she thinks, really. People can really change one another. You should go, she says. I'll always be here. You know that. I found that very touching. She's a very true kind of a person, steadfast and true. And what he is, it comes out all in this last one paragraph. I felt it explained the whole book to me. That's it.
Very nice.
Yeah, that was lovely.
Thank you, Prema. Very nice.
Yeah. Lakshmi, I think you wanted to go next.
I did, unless someone's in a very tearing hurry.
Yeah. Is anyone?
No.
No, we can
Yes,
wait.
please.
Lakshmi, go ahead.
Right. So when I get a book, I like to feel it with all my senses. I like to touch the cover. You can feel the indentations, the engraved thing. I like the two cuddled together in a box of sardines. I like the font. I like the color. Then I feel the streamlined edges. I actually take a whiff of the book. I like books. So, and then I opened to the dedication page, and it says, it is one of the secrets in that change of mental poise, which has been fitly named conversion, that to many among us, neither heaven nor earth has any revelation till some personality touches theirs with a peculiar influence, subduing them into receptiveness. And then I read page 1, which says, Marian answers the door when Connell rings the bell. She's still wearing her school uniform, but she's taken off the sweater, so it's just the blouse, skirt, no shoes, and tights. And after that, I read the first 25% of the book very grumpily and went to sleep. Next morning, when I was brushing my teeth, I suddenly, in my mind's eye, I saw the pages that I had read in a completely new light. And that's what I would like to share with you. We know about the two teenagers. Prema has given the story so beautifully. We know about the two teenagers, Marian and Connell, who come of age, being codependent on each other, carrying the scars, complexes, and insecurities of their background. Connell is the son of a house cleaner, Marian, daughter of an abusive, dysfunctional family. So far, so good. The die is cast. They meet, they click at subliminal level, have a clandestine relationship, which becomes all the more exciting because it is a secret. They break up and come together as we know they must. This is simply the plot. There is no story. And here the author is wonderfully perceptive of the hows and the whys of people interacting. It is sensitive, touching, funny, sad, an exploration of fundamental issues which many of us have experienced to some extent. For example, I know that people might think there is a disconnect from what we are today with the free sex and the inebriation, but there are deeper levels to this which I found. For example, what price popularity, peer pressure, teen angst, falling in love, rejection, infatuation, insecurities, the need for approval, social status, the relentless slide into depression. These are the issues she explores. It is clear that they share a deep mutual bond and understanding which few may ever experience. But it is also true that they keep their thoughts to themselves. And this seems to be a fatal flaw, if I can use such a huge expression for a book here. A fatal flaw is their lack of communication. They're educated, intelligent, speak of issues which have national importance, but they just can't articulate. If you just give me a couple of minutes to find the book page I want to find. That's nice, she said. He turned his head and kissed her bare shoulder. She laughed. You're happy now, he said. You're smiling. You're right. I'm happy. He nodded towards the pool where Peggy had just fallen into the water and everyone was laughing at her. Is this what life is like? She looked at his face, but she couldn't tell from his expression if he was pleased or miserable. What do you mean? She said. He only shrugged. A few days later, he told her he was leaving Dublin for the summer and that would break her up. Not just break them up, it would break her up. So that's what I meant by not articulating. So there is miscommunication. So there is silence, which leads to a separation. And this is how Rooney marvelously explores the psyche of two teens bound together, bound to separate, and also leaves the ending deliciously ambiguous. She will wait for him. Will he come back? I don't know. New York changes people. And slightly to digress from what Suresh said, Normal People is a perfect title. Marian and Connell could well appear a normal couple, except that they live lives questioning their normalcy and leaving us with the question, what does it mean to be normal? Is it normal to want a relationship and yet feel unnerved by intimacy, as in Connell? Is it normal to be a sadomasochist, as is Marian? Normal to feel unloved? To be solely dependent on one person? What is normal to one is not normal to another. Another curiosity of the book is that the two protagonists stumble their way in a very confused state through the present. But only when they speak of the past do they have clearer vision, as do a lot of us know, we speak of hindsight. But what I want to emphasize here and what I found really interesting, captivating is the present just is. Okay, that is what's happening now. We are. And that's why I feel Rooney writes in the present tense. It's normally not something I enjoy at all, but it suits this very well. She writes in the present tense using dialogue that has no inverted commas. Another minute, please, to see if I can find the page, or I will just skip it. Excuse me. Pardon, 2 minutes? Okay, then I'll skip it. So I see this as an existentialist novel. It speaks of the present in the present. Most times, the present or the now lacks drama. Thank God for that. As Eliot would say, we measure lives in teaspoons. And Rooney's narrative style, or writing a plot, which doesn't have a story in the present tense, in the present times, is perfect for it. What bothered me is, why can't they speak frankly to each other when they know each other so well? Then this happens throughout the book. Then I stopped and threw the question back at myself to realize that often it is with those that we are most close that we don't openly communicate. Think about it. I admired the book immensely. Can't say I enjoyed it, but I did admire it. It's a new way of writing an age-old story, tragically romanticized and dramatized in Romeo and Juliet. Thank you.
That was lovely. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Vash.
Yeah. Does anybody else need to leave?
Can I go next? No,
Sure,
I don't
yes.
have to leave. I don't have to leave. If somebody else wants to leave, they can go next.
Okay. So no, I was just wondering, because so far everybody has, if not enjoyed, at least had something positive to say about the book. Did anybody except me dislike the book?
Initially, Purva.
Okay. Tell you what, Lulu, why don't you go and I'll follow you, because we all know that my opinions are hardly subtle. So yeah.
I thought you were nearer their age, so maybe you could.
I thought so too.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh goodness, I hated it.
I was like, okay, maybe Purva will like it.
No, but no, then, yeah, okay. Continue.
So I resonated with what Lakshmi had to say. After reading the first 25 pages, I dropped the book grumpily. I did too. And I said, what am I doing with this book? And then I continue, I'm still reading it. I continue to read it for the sole purpose of not allowing it to defeat me. And I'm still trying, and I will finish it because I don't like books defeating me. And it offered me nothing. I think these two people are idiots, and they need to start talking. And if you say I can't talk and you're so highly intelligent, and then on the other hand you can't talk, then you don't deserve to love or to be loved. You just move on and live your life. And there's no point in lamenting those issues. And if you're lucky, he might come back and you may find each other, whatever. But frankly, it is very boring, and I'm doing my best to read it.
Can I go next?
Yeah, Ramesh.
Sure.
Okay. So I like the book. I rarely have met a book that I didn't like. So I liked it because the language was quite spare and elegant. But I found the style of writing in the third person not very appealing, because it was like the author was actually present and was commenting on it as events unfolded. And I thought that was a bit intrusive. To Suresh's point, I think these two characters are operating under a different set of cultural norms from what we may have been used to. And the cultural norms are different both because of the different geographies, the different generations, and specifically because of the early independence that young people assume in Western countries, and the lack of or the absence of the practice of an arranged marriage. So there is the need, the urgency to find a partner, and adolescence kicks in, and there are no breaks that would be applied as they are in India very often, and so that's the difference in the cultural norms. Now, having said that, uh, I think that there was nothing really special about the book in the other sense, which is, if these two are truly such good friends, then what was the problem? I mean, in communicating, that's again, the author is stepping in to explain what each person feels. And I don't see the need for that. Why couldn't each person explain to the other what they feel? So there was that sense that Sally Rooney was making a big deal out of nothing. Why this particular journey through the minds of two people for those 4 or 5 years? There was nothing particularly interesting about it, and it could have been easily solved. That's one feeling. The other feeling is, in this day of WhatsApp and Skype calls, going to New York is not such a big deal. Going across the pond from Ireland to New York again is no big deal, really. Marianne is from a wealthy family. So there was that sense of finality, or a sense of, someone leaving and not going, the uncertainty was not necessary. A long distance relationship could have easily been maintained. So again, what was the big deal? So the book didn't live up to the hype, but I did enjoy the book. And one more point, there's one particular group of people who would find this book very useful. And I speak from experience, at least from observing others, and that is people who are raising children in Western societies, but who are bound by traditional values. Very often, though not so much in my generation, but in the prior generation of migrants to the United States, their children faced a lot more difficulty with the generation gap. And I just think that if their parents had read this book, they would have understood what the children face in school and from their peers much better. It is that lack of understanding very often that introduces the gap, and expectations are so mismatched that it can cause a lot of stress, very often to very, very detrimental effect. So I think in that sense, it would be good for people to read it, to understand. But I don't think it's, to Suresh's point, that it's something to worry about. I don't think there's anything to worry about at all. If this is the way young people want to experiment and find their life partners, then that's perfectly fine. And again, speaking from experience, I have seen my peers almost encouraging this, even though they were from very traditional backgrounds in the US, to the point that they are supporting their children, even with, different partners, even multiple partners. And not only have they accepted it, they talk it through with their kids. So I think that kind of understanding, if one wants to develop, we do have to read books like this. And Sally Rooney has done a wonderful job of explaining what actually goes on in not just within the teen's mind, but regarding the social environment that people operate in during high school and college. That's all I had.
Thank you, Ramesh sir. If nobody
Can I
else-
just ask a simple question now? The sex and all that I understand, but why the drink? Is it particular to Ireland, where people in any case drink a lot, or is it Common
Everywhere
to,
they drink.
they're early teenagers. They're just 20 when the book finishes. So it's not as if they're
Everyone
adults.
drinks.
Prema, this is digressing from I'm sorry, I am digressing, not you.
Uh-huh.
But having been a teacher for almost 40 years and my students going there, the first semester in particular is full of alcohol. Here, of course, they seem to be alcoholing their way through their life. But they really is. The first part is alcohol. The second semester is sex. And then they realize the world is more than that.
Yeah,
and they start working, they continue with this. I'm
What is
sorry.
syllabus? First semester alcohol, second syllabus sex. Nice syllabus.
Yeah, and I mean, considering what a forbidden fruit it is for a lot of people here. I mean, I remember I went to MOP Vaishnav, which has students from a very traditional background, and I can guarantee you that the first thing those girls did when they went to more restrictive environments, partly because they did not know how to handle the freedom, was go hog wild. Just because they just didn't, their parents, with the very good intention of shielding them from everything bad in the world, basically send these lost little lambs out with absolutely no idea of how to live in the real world. That's fundamentally it. Like they have freedom, at least speaking from my perspective of my classmates and my friends. The less freedom they had at home, the more they sort of saw college as this and also honestly fact, kids and teenagers, their brains haven't developed yet. There is the risk-taking behavior is that's when you do stupid things. That's when you figure out your boundaries. In India, we have culturally imposed restrictions that the West doesn't have.
Actually, there's more to it than that. First of all, in India, financial independence is impossible for most teens.
That too, yeah.
Yeah, and regarding the drinking, in my experience, most American teens are waiting for the age of 18. High school, they get their cars when they're 14 or 15. They're driving to high school, and the peer group is clearly, in Texas, at least children can drink in the presence of the parents after they're 12 at home. They can't go to a bar and drink, but people have already tried alcohol. So there's the tendency to think, hey, when we're 18, we can drink. And it is, of course, very strange to believe that at the stroke of midnight on the 18th birthday, the child suddenly becomes an adult and is mature enough to handle alcohol. But that's the way the world treats them. Once they're admitted into a bar, they're admitted. So they don't know their limits. They don't know how to pace themselves. And alcohol, is kind of, they're hooked on it for some time at least. The question of the casual sex, I mean, it's hard to be judgmental. Indians in the US in their initial years are very judgmental about it, but then they slowly change as their children grow up, and it's a different set of rules is all I can say to find a partner. And so it's hard to say that it is wrong, but there are dangers of an emotional involvement that occurs too soon when the people are too immature. And perhaps in this case, you have to admire them both for being very intelligent, very ambitious, because they're both good in their studies, and yet they are groping their way towards a partnership, is the best way I can put it. So yeah, it's hard. And often, again, I have to bring up Indian parents in Western countries. Often there is the converse, where the children don't get married at all because they do not want the arranged marriages, but they don't figure out the rituals of courtship. They don't know how to date or how to make a choice. And it's easiest to just say, I don't want to participate in this. And that can happen, and it happens quite a bit in Indian families. So, who's to say which is right and which is wrong?
Yeah, I don't think we can ever say that about any individual.
Yeah.
Hey, Purva, I would just like to ask something.
Sure.
Why does Marian get so offended that Cornell doesn't invite her for the DEP party? I mean, already he doesn't want to proclaim this relationship to his friends. And she's so bitter and angry with him. She doesn't return his calls. So that's something I couldn't understand. Of course, I'm so grateful to Rameshan for, I'm sort of, see, we've grown up in a very restricted environment. So this was a nice thing to hear the other side. See, it's so easy to judge other people saying, oh, casual sex, drink, etc. But that's the way of life there. So I think this book was interesting in that way. It gave me an idea of what's happening around. We lead a very restricted life in sort of a cocoon or a balloon, and we have no idea of what's happening in many
Things are changing, huh?
houses.
Yeah, things are changing like crazy.
Yeah.
Urban India, metros changing like crazy. But anyway, I think we've all digested.
Yeah.
Sundari,
Yeah,
I'll
no,
be happy to
yeah.
answer your question once we finish the.
Please,
anyone else wants to. Who's going?
I did
I'd
actually
like
have,
to, only because I think my son would have finished his match.
Go ahead, please. I can go after you then. Go ahead, please.
Okay, great. Just to take off also on what Rameshan said, because that's exactly why I finished this book, to kind of prepare myself for what my kids are 11 now, will be 12 in a couple of months. So to know whether I can understand them at all, because, as it is, the language is like, I don't understand half the things they say. So I read it, and I'm not worried at all. It's not one of the books that I've picked up. If it didn't create the buzz, it did. If it didn't, if it weren't part of the book club, if Vijay hadn't, recommended it, probably I wouldn't have picked it up. But I'm glad I did for many reasons. I mean, I didn't like the lead pair too much. I just want to smack them and say, just talk to each other, people. What are you doing? But I think it brought out a lot of emotions, a lot of these things that I think Lakshmi very nicely pointed out. Also, all these things about how do you deal with bullying, Lenda Aramcha, a bunch of things that she talks about that kids go through, right? That we are not always aware of because they don't talk as much, they don't communicate as much, right? I entered and exited the book without too much emotional attachment at that point. But then when I, like much of the characters, they seem to enter and exit relationships that way. But once I started thinking about it, I think it brought out a lot of things. She talks about a bunch of things. The writing style, everybody's talked about, very easy. One thing that I found very, I wouldn't say peculiar, but different is that it seems to talk very effortlessly about emotions, right? Whenever we as a writer, I'm always told, show, don't tell. But Rooney just flips it completely. She tells us what every character is thinking. She tells us what their motivations are also. And, you would imagine it would jar because you've grown up thinking you have to think of the emotions, you have to imagine it. But she just lays it out for you, all of it out for you. And it didn't jar at all, really. So, so I really like that also, right? And I'm hoping some of these observations will really come in handy because it is a very confusing state. And as like Rameshan says, right? So when you move to a space where you have no restrictions, how do you navigate your way? It is not easy, right? I would think it's not easy because if there are no rules, how do you do this? And perhaps this style also of talking about emotions so openly as an author is also reflective of how teens, want to. They really want to talk about so much, but are they able to? Clearly this lead pair is not able to communicate, but there's so much that is going on inside that you are privy to, but the characters don't really communicate. So that was very interesting, craft-wise also for me. I also liked how the situation between the two of them switched once they left school, right? So in school, Marianne was sort of the weirdo, for lack of a better term, and he was the jock. But when they went to college, it completely flipped. And then how does their equation change? So that was also very interesting, and I think that happens a lot, right? Because you're not the same person that you were in school. When I look at my photos from school and college, I'm like, what a param, what was it thinking, what was it wearing, sort of thing, right? So that was also very interesting, and I found that pretty. And I think she really gets into the skin of the character and just writes it all out, which is, you're like, wow, I didn't know you could do that at all. And a couple of things, just one quote that really helped me understand and to deal with a particular situation that's going on in my children's lives, which is playground bullying. So she says, not for the first time, Marianne thinks cruelty does not only hurt the victim, but the perpetrator also, and maybe more deeply and more permanently. You learn nothing very profound about yourself simply by being bullied, but by bullying someone else, you learn something you can never forget. So things like these, because she explains everything, is all over
I
the place.
yes.
Maybe one thing that I found, probably was that this probably wasn't the right time for many of us to read the book because of the war. I think books are not read so much in isolation, right? Because going in through, like, I would say 3/4 in the book, I was like, okay, meeting again, splitting up, meeting again, splitting up. We are dying out there. What is this microscopic view of one couple sort of thing? So I think that was also a lesson for me, that books are not really read in like isolation sometimes, because that really affected me. I was like, this, it was such a huge thing is going on, and why are you too focused on such a little thing? Can't you just talk to each other and like sort it out, sort of thing? I'm thinking of them as real people. So that was one learning also. And I like that it was open-ended. And I think that is how it would be. And also I think that if that misunderstanding wouldn't have happened, it might have been something else. This is the way I got the feeling that this is how this was destined. It would not have been any other way, is the sense that I got when it ended also, that is how the relationship would probably be. I understand there's a film or a series or something that's out based on this.
There's
Yes.
going to be a movie, I think. Yeah.
Television, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Not television, a series. So I probably won't watch it, but it was good to read this. And her next book has really created a lot of buzz as well. Beautiful World, Where Are You? I think is its name. And I'm interested. It's sort of weird that I have to understand my children through somebody else's writing, but I'm hoping to pick it up also. So thanks, people.
Yeah, I'm wondering whether I read the same book as all of y'all, because
Yes.
honestly, I hated it. The single redeeming thing about Normal People is that I only had to wade through 266 pages of this utter tripe. I mean, I have this is an older Goodreads review, so I'm just going to read a couple of excerpts. Normal People leaves a poor impression right off the bat, with its eschewing of punctuation marks, making the whole thing feel like 266 pages of run-on sentences. This would be forgivable if the sentences were well written. They are not. Rooney constantly tells the reader how her characters feel rather than showing it to us, which wouldn't be so bad if her writing didn't plod along like a particularly arthritic tortoise. Her characters have all the depth of cardboard and all the interest and all the interest of day-old oatmeal, which makes sense because that's also the rough color of their skin. According to the author, these are not normal people, and it's a damn good thing, because if normal people had been this insipid, insufferable, and downright annoying, then the human race would have collapsed in on itself from its utter banality.
Wow. Where did you get this review?
No, I wrote it in 2019 when I read the damn book.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
I just got all the good reviews. Okay.
No, I'm not on my profile on Goodreads isn't public, so you wouldn't have seen it. But yeah, I mean, and honestly, as a millennial, I completely I repudiate this this portrayal of my generation. These people remind me of nobody so much as the most pretentious jackasses I met at JNU, and I promise you, the vast majority of us have a damn sight more common sense. But yeah, no, honestly, as you can tell, I did not particularly like it. And quite frankly, if you want anything approaching, okay, I am a reader of genre romance. I am unapologetic about it. Quite frankly, Normal People reads like a romance novel for people who are too snobby to admit that romance novels do every single bit of this book better. The characters are deeper. The romance is better written. There are actual obstacles and not pretentiousness in the way. And honestly, if you, I would recommend everybody go read Beverly Jenkins or Alyssa Cole or Courtney Milan. It would be a far better use of your time or brain cells.
Thanks, yeah, Purva.
I never claim to be subtle in my likes and dislikes.
Yeah, fine. I gotta go, guys. Thanks so much for everything.
Thank you.
Who's going next? Anyone else? I also have to go.
Yeah. Anyone else? I am glad that all of you all had a better experience with the book than I did. Huh?
I'm
just
glad
have
we
2
had
points.
differing opinions. That's always
Yeah.
interesting.
As I said, I did not. I cannot
I'm
say.
waiting for your explanation.
Yes, if we have time.
Yeah.
It has been okay.
Purva will tell us if we
Yeah,
have time.
I mean, like I said, it's been a while, and I quite frankly banished this book from my memory at first opportunity. But I mean, having been, a young woman, I guess her pride was hurt. That's the best explanation I have. She hates that she's not part of his life. I mean, she was a brat about it. That's the best explanation I have.
Okay.
Well,
anyhow,
I just have 2 more points to add. You've got to imagine what could have happened if Connell had an understanding father who was talking to him, rather than just a super understanding mom. And the same for Marianne, if her family had been more communicative with her, rather than just basically abandoning her emotionally throughout her life, how things would have been different. So again, if we are interested in this book as parents, then those 2 questions would be interesting to answer. And the other point that struck me was Connell being surprised when his mom says that perhaps Marianne's parents would not approve of him as a good partner for Marianne, because his station in life is so much lower, because he's the son of a housekeeper who cleans their house. And he is quite taken aback by it. And he says, oh, you're good enough to clean their house, but I'm not good enough to date their daughter. And so I don't know if the author was being deliberately disingenuous at that point, but it seems to me that in all societies, that would be a natural conclusion. And so why was Connell surprised? I don't fully understand that.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that was what struck me as well. I mean, all the reviews herald the great class consciousness of the book. What class consciousness?
No.
I mean, there were maybe a throwaway mention here and there, but
That's all. Yes, especially when he goes to university and he says it's more about people showing off what they have, in the form of material things rather than their brains. That's what he found in university. It's the only time there's any discussion like this going on. Very true.
It was so shallow. If somebody found the class consciousness discussion piece,
have anything to
There is nothing of class consciousness except bits and pieces here and there.
anyhow.
Purva, Chandra and Maureen have to speak.
Yes, so I do, but I believe
I will just two or three. I just started because I had another fantastic book, and I bought the book 1 month back. It came to me the first day of the month. Okay, I read for 15 pages, then I just couldn't continue. I left it aside. Then I felt so guilty, and I started this morning thinking that somehow I'll skip. But suddenly, to my surprise, I found that it was quite interesting. It was not so badly written. I think I will complete the book.
Yes.
Now, what my opinion will be after that, I have no idea. But I think, and one more thing, this I have to say, see, I've worked with youngsters all the time and with Western crowd. Okay, I worked with Brits quite a bit. And I feel that their culture, they are under a lot of pressure. That's what I found. They are under pressure to find their partners. See, we are a much more relaxed society. We were much luckier. All we have to do was our parents found the partners, and we could blame our parents if it didn't work out. Okay, we can say, "Amma, appa, enakku nalla maappalai. Andha kaalathil appadi kalivichirundha, I would have done this." Very easy to say that. These girls and boys had to find their own partners. It was a major pressure on them, because I remember a lady with me who was a senior officer who was at that time 40, and she was saying, "Look, I don't have a partner. I desperately want a child. So I'm going to date a very young man." She literally hooked him and to have a baby. I later on heard that, yes, she has had a baby. Whether she's still with him, I don't know. See, these sort of pressures, we don't understand here. So I think, let me be a little more generous and I'll try reading it. The first bit when he shuffles, when he is pushing his toe inside the shoe, all that sounded very that I think that explained the person's stance, his emotions, the way it was quite, I felt it was quite nice. Now let me complete reading it. Maybe I'll put something in the WhatsApp group after that. That's all.
Maureen?
Okay, so
Yeah, Maureen.
I can't find Maureen.
Yeah,
Hang on, I have something
Maureen
in the
said is
chat.
one.
Hang on.
Like to go after Maureen. If,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Latika is here, Vidyasagar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Vijay, you want to go next?
yeah, if I
Okay, I think Maureen is not there, Purva.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah,
not
okay.
I
there.
can't see her. Yeah.
Yeah,
Vijay
I think
wants to
she's
talk.
left. Yeah. Yeah, Vijay?
Vijay,
okay,
yeah.
I'll do this. Yeah, I like the book, and so I was reading it the second time. I wish I had finished it a bit earlier to summarize my thoughts, but somehow I've just been summarizing as you people are speaking, so it makes it a bit difficult for me to put them together. Just a couple of things I would like to react to this point that Rameshan raised, about the class difference. I think it's more a reflection of what Cornell was thinking at that moment, not the author's statement, I would say. And it reflects his makeup at that moment. He's a hero in the school. Everyone is cheering for him, so everyone is going for him. So he feels that way. Even though Marianne is from a better off family, she's looked down upon in the school. She's not able to move socially. So he's just blown away. That it just goes to show his mental makeup. I thought so, and this other for me, I think the book appealed to me in a lot of ways. In the way of the author's craft. There's drama in her writing. There's one moment when she describes how he's working on the laptop, then closes it. Then it's like the economy is also not doing well. Something like that statement goes like that. If I can read it, I'll find out just a moment. I'm not sure about the job prospects though. Who cares? The economy is fucked anyway. The laptop screen goes black now and he taps the it lights up again and the college application webpage stares back at him. So there's so much drama in this, I thought, just those few lines.
Oh, we lost him.
Yeah,
And so there are a couple of lines also beautifully crafted, I thought. So there's somewhere she says in a voice that was just false enough. I'll just try to. So in a voice just false enough to sound nearly sincere, Marian says, "Oh, I'm sorry." So, such those kind of sentences also were beautifully crafted, I thought. And so this novel is more about this anxiety, the anxiety that this generation, I think, suffers from of living up to what people think is normal. So that there's a if someone had read it on Kindle, I could just search for the word normal. I think the many occasions that she talks about normal people and everything sounds a bit that's a kind of normalcy that people try to kind of aspire to, but these two somehow are not able to do that. So I think that was this novel all about. Also this craft, when you talk about craft, the jump in the timelines and how she seamlessly does that. And that was another thing that appealed to me. And she talks about the society a couple of times. She talks about patriarchy, how men, though they control all the strings of the society, they don't enjoy, they don't have a good time, something like that. That's one thing. And there's a lot of talk about money and capital. This is why, but capitalism, they often take that. How money again circulates, how Lauren earns by working for a mother, and then this guy again gets to spend the money on this girl again. So it's like a cycle. So that there's a few reflections of society that she drops here and there. And I also thought some interesting reflections on art that she drops here and there. That at one line, to be touched by a work of literature. One of his professors calls it the pleasure of being touched by great art, that the literature moves him. I thought, so it made an interesting reading for me all. Yeah, that's it for me.
Anybody else?
Letika is there.
Yeah.
I don't know if she has.
One thing about the mom, the relationship between mom and this guy. At one level, you can relate to it like the mom objecting to him throwing the wet towel on the bed. That happens at our home too. Another level, she says it's okay as long as you use protection. I can't imagine a mom saying that to the boy. So the different levels, at one level you can relate.
But you
to it.
forget she's only 16 years older than him. She had a child when she was 16 or something like that. She's not an old mother.
That they say. Yeah.
Yeah, she's a very young mother and she
Yeah, she's a very
understands
young
these things.
Because she's only 53 or something.
Yeah, she's taking the
as old as-
pragmatic view of things.
Not
That
even, yeah.
this is what you shouldn't do, that's all.
Yeah, and she must be in her 30s if she had him at 17.
Yeah,
And plus, I
yeah.
imagine she doesn't want him to make the same mistakes. she did.
Exactly. That's it. She doesn't want him to make the same, or the girl to make the same mistake.
Yeah.
You know what? I find that after listening to all of you, I'm beginning to enjoy the book. And I wonder, I mean, there's so many things I'm learning after hearing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was really
It
nice.
makes the book so interesting. It's Ramesh's view, and it's really very, very
That's
fascinating.
true. I'm sure the book here I'll be more sympathetic as I read this book.
Yeah, even I will be more. And not even that, if few people had not recommended, I wouldn't take this book. So
Yes,
you will end up reading the same books you read, all the time. So it's something to do.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That happens.
Something different from
Something
what you
different.
normally would read.
Yeah.
You're forced out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. Anyhow, guys, I'm reading this book, fantastic book, Amour. Anyhow, I like the travelogue.
What is it?
This is
yeah,
I like travelogue.
the
It's called the Amour River between Russia and China.
Yeah, I know the river, but not
Yeah, the river. It's very well written. So far, it's very, very good. That's what.
What is it called?
The
It's
Amur
called
River.
the Amour
River.
River. The Amour River.
Yeah.
Amour
Would you
River
mind putting a
between
link?
Russia and China.
Yeah, would you mind putting the name and author in the WhatsApp group, please?
Yeah, I will do that. I'll do that. That's what kept me away from Rooney's book. Normal people. Anyhow, I think I must go. 5 o'clock.
Same here, it's 5
Yeah,
o'clock.
same.
Because
Yeah.
something else has come up. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank
Bye.
you everyone.
You can call me
Thank you.
Sudri.
Yeah, okay, done.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye, guys. This was
Bye.
fun.
Yeah, this was
Bye.
really
Bye.
interesting.
Very nice. I really enjoyed everybody's
Yeah.
viewpoint. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone. See you.
Bye.
Suresh has a recording for you in a
Bye.
bit. Yeah, once it's
Please, I need it.
once it's sorted.
My recording is not perfect.
Okay.
Suresh, Purva,
Bye.
special thanks to both of you, as always.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
as
you.
always. They do
So,
all the hard
Prema,
work.
you could
Yeah,
leave
everyone,
everybody.
buddy.
Bye.
Yeah,
Thank
see you.
Bye.
Yeah, either online or offline next month.
Yeah. Latika, hi.